women have tried the dating apps, they've tried speed dating, they've tried, you know, going to the nightclub, going to the bar, hoping some guy's gonna hit on them. But this woman, this woman's actually found where he can find a good man.
Oh my gosh, y'all, you'll never guess where I found my boyfriend. In the friend zone. Ladies, they're waiting for you.
What do you reckon, Matt? Do you think women should be looking at the men in their friend zone for a boyfriend?
You know, I'll give you my honest opinion straight out of the gate. Generally, no, I don't think they should.
Generally, I think yes, they should. So looks like
good.
we've got a disagreement. That'll be fun.
I'm totally open to changing my mind, but that's my first instinct is no, and I have reasons.
Okay, well, let's hear them. What do you think are the dangers of a woman looking through the pile of men she's got in the friend zone, like the men who've been orbiting her, picking out the best one and being like, let's try a relationship? What do you think the danger of that is?
What I think of the friend zone is a woman has put a man there because she doesn't view him as a viable sexual prospect. And only later, for some reason, she decides to go fishing in there because she gets dumped by Chad, because she hits the wall, because she has a revelation and decides that the nice guy is the good guy. And often when she'll do that, it'll work for like 6 months or so. And then she'll lose the spark and then she'll leave and go to someone else who's more exciting. And then he has the same problems as the first Chad. So it's kind of this ping-ponging that I see happen quite a bit.
That's a really good point. I'm 100% convinced by that, is that wow. If she is just temporarily like, God, I keep making bad choices, I'm going to go with this nice guy. And then she starts dating him and 6 months in, she's like, yeah, like I'm over whatever pain caused me to choose this guy in the first place. So now I've lost interest in you and I want to put you back in the friend zone. This was never going to be a sexual dynamic.
A lot of women will just publicly admit that they treat guys differently based off of if he seems like a short-term or a long-term partner. You know, if a guy seems like a short-term partner, she will make all kinds of concessions to her normal rule book. But if a guy seems like potential long-term, usually a little too nice, then she'll have all kinds of barriers for him to jump through.
A lot of guys in the friend zone, right? They listen to the woman's reason why they put you in the friend zone. Like, look, I just need to get to know somebody first. I like to be friends with somebody first. I need to know you over a long period of time. I'm not the kind of woman to sleep with women really early. And it's like, oh, women are not like men. Women are really, you know, special and they're a lot more, you know, morally superior, and I'm just a hound dog who just sleep with anybody anytime. Whereas women are not like that. They're special. They're unique. They're all of that nonsense, essentially. And so then they find a woman, and she does sleep with him quickly, and he's like, whoa. I know that women don't do this very often. The fact that she slept with me really quickly, that just speaks to how amazing I am. I must be the exception. I must be the top 1%. Dude, no. From what I've seen in my life, women who sleep with a man, any man, it's not because you're special. It's not because you're the exception. It's not because you're the 1%. It's because she has low standards. She'll sleep with almost anybody.
Unless you are actually reasonably high quality, in which case you need to watch her carefully for a little while to see if she demonstrates other high quality behaviors. If she, come on, like, don't self-sabotage yourself here. Because let's say you're actually a badass and then she's like, this is very unusual for me because most men are not nearly as impressive as you. So I feel the urge to sleep with you early. And then she maybe even feels conflicted about it. And you can kind of tell. That's not actually a mark against her if it's unusual for her, but you don't know if it's unusual until you watch her in many contexts. That's why you go on dates. That's why you meet her friends. You introduce her to your friends. You learn about her family. You watch her in times of struggle. And the longer you can watch her and the more context you see her in, the more quickly you'll put together, is she impulsive and unscrupulous with her connections and whatnot, in which case probably assume that her willingness to sleep with you is not born of high quality, but is born of low quality.
Well, you'll quickly find out, because if you reject a woman sexually, if she was just looking for a hookup with any old guy, she will move on to the next man, you know?
Yes, exactly.
What's the saying? Like, dick is abundant, right? Like, there's no shortage out there. If you're not giving her what she wants, she'll move on. Whereas if she actually is interested in a long-term relationship with you and you're just so amazing that she really can't control herself, she just wants to sleep with you straight away, when you reject her sexually or you say not yet, she will stick around. The other reason why I think that a woman might be, well, I still think that it's a good idea for women to give the men in the friend zone another look. I can understand that the kind of man who is okay being put in the friend zone is probably not that high quality. You understand? Like, if you have said like, no, I'm not interested in you sexually, but can you just hang around me for a couple of months to see if I change my mind? Any man who's okay with doing that is probably not the kind of high quality man that you want to be with. So when I said at the beginning of this conversation that I think that women should be looking for men in the friend zone, and Matt disagrees, I think I misspoke in that what I probably meant to say is women should be considering the men that she is considering friend zoning. You know what I mean? Like the kind of qualities that women filter out and say, no, I'm going to put him in the friend zone. I'm not saying the men who've already been friend zoned and are okay with it. That's obviously not a good idea. But I think that women should take a more serious look at those prospective, boyfriends who they're tempted to friend zone, because I think that women's characteristics, like the standards that they're looking for in terms of the men that they can date, are not good. I don't think women are the best judges about what's right for them in relationships at the moment. And so I'm encouraging women to give those nicer seeming, like slightly more boring guys a chance. That's more where I'm coming from.
If you're advocating for women to reevaluate their standards on what a high quality man is, totally agree with that.
A lot of men fall into this, it's like a sexual strategy. I'll call it the gradual realization fantasy. It's a total myth, but this is what they're hoping is that if they just spend enough time with a woman in a friendship capacity, being nice to her, showing that I'm different to other guys, proving his loyalty while getting very little or nothing in return. Eventually, one day, she'll just look at him with new eyes, or gradually he'll wear her down, and suddenly sexual attraction will just be born from nothing. Whereas that's not how sexual attraction works. The harsh truth is that most women can put men into one of two categories within the first couple of seconds of meeting a guy. Like, yes, he is a viable sexual prospect, or no chance, never gonna happen. To make the shift from one to the other is very, very difficult. So let's return to the friend zone then. Let's talk about what happens if you are in the friend zone and you ultimately make it out, which has happened. I know somebody in my personal life who chased a girl for 4 years, and 4 years he was dedicated to this woman. I judged him so strongly. I thought, this guy is a moron. This girl has contempt for him. Guess what? Still married 15 or so years later.
Wow.
Very happy. Like, what the hell? That goes against my understanding of how this stuff should work. And I know other examples. When I was traveling, I often ask couples, like, how did you guys get together? Sometimes women will say, we were friends for ages. I was like, oh, he wanted to be friends with you? And she's like, no, like he wanted to get with me, but I wasn't sort of ready. And then ultimately things changed. I feel like it would be intellectually dishonest to pretend like situations like that don't occur. I'm extremely reluctant to bring them up because I'm scared that all the simp guys in the audience are going to be like, yes, I just need to commit a little bit harder to this friend zone strategy, and then she'll finally see that I'm better than all those guys she's having one night stands with. No, I so strongly disagree with what you're doing, but let's actually talk about that phenomenon.
Yeah, well, I think if the man is clearly on an upward trajectory, then maybe her standards that she has when she meets him, he isn't quite there yet. But if he's just flying up the ranks, like this is very likely when you're young, when you're 19 and you don't have any work experience, you don't have any money, you don't have any status, but then over the course of 4 years, you just start crushing it. She might see that all happen and be like, wow, you were kind of a little boy and now you're a man. Like that's probably going to happen. But let me reference Jordan Peterson again, because we can't stop ourselves. His wife told the story of how she put him in the friend zone. She's a little older than him. He's a weird kid, probably. She put him in the friend zone for years. And she says, more or less verbatim, once she noticed other women liked him, then she snatched him up because she saw he was going through college. He was becoming a psychologist. He was clearly making something of himself. And she's like, ooh, he's the guy now that these ladies are after. I'm going to get him because he still loves me.
So do you see then that even though you've been put in the friend zone and some men make it out of that, it's not their commitment to the friend zone and that strategy which ultimately gets them out of that. It's their willingness to date other women. It's their willingness to invest not in her, but to invest in himself. And once you do that, then suddenly you're kind of not in the friend zone, even though she might like to have kept you there, because you're getting too big for that space. You're growing out of it. You're coming into your masculinity. You're coming into your manhood. And then suddenly she's like, oh, you know, if I don't like grab this balloon now before it floats off into the air, I might lose him. He'll go into a different atmosphere that I can't get. So she'll grab him. But which then brings us to the discussion then of, well, what do you do if you're Jordan Peterson in that situation? Just listening to the idea of, I chased a woman for a number of years and I was humiliated and rejected a number of times, but only the fact that other women wanted me, suddenly she's like, all right, now I'm down for that. Is that good? Is that a good reason to be with her? Surely it's like, no, sweetheart, you had your chance. I'm going to go with all these other women, you know? Like, doesn't that make more sense?
It makes sense, but like, if you weren't good enough for her and now you are, like, she was right to reject you. And like, men take it so personally when they think like, oh, back when I was weak and kind of pathetic, you didn't love me. Why would I let you love me now that I'm strong and masculine? It's like, why do you think she didn't like you before? It's because you were kind of weak and pathetic. Like, if you've made a massive transformation and it's obvious to yourself and to others, then I think they were probably right to demand that of you. There's an adage that men will basically do as little as they can get away with as long as women keep loving them, right? If approval causes your growth to stop, then it's in a woman's best interest to withhold some of her approval until you actually reach a minimum standard. I think that's probably wise on her part. And I think it goes both ways. Men should not dole out approval to women unless they meet their standard. And if she's below your standard, then you don't give it to her. And if she meets your standard, then you start giving. It's just basic, reward reinforcement.
So it's the nicest possible explanation, essentially, that it was all on you. She had the perfectly reasonable standards, and the reason that you were rejected was because of you and your fault and your problems, and then you fix it, in which case, when you eventually get together, the two of you can laugh back then, like, yeah, I would have rejected me too. I respect you for rejecting me back then and demanding more of me. That's the best possible explanation, but there are two other explanations. The first one I want to talk about is that, what if you haven't actually improved that much? It's just that her standards have dropped. Now, why would her standards drop? Possibly because the other options that she was seeking to get with all were rejecting her. Like, you were this sort of pathetic loser man who was chasing me around. I wanted to get with Mr. Super Chad, but guess what? He only wants to sleep with me. He's not going to actually commit to me. Now I'm getting older. Now I want to have babies, and I'm not getting the quality of man that I want. And so I'm going to come to you and be like, hey, I'm now ready, and I'm ready because you've changed and you're a better man and everything's fantastic. No, that's not what's going on. That's just you virtue signaling. What's actually occurring is that your standards have dropped because you've gotten more desperate.
Yeah, this is why so many men are understandably so, resentful towards women who have the epiphany in their late 20s and early 30s, right on schedule, and they say, well, I want a man, like, I've had my fun, just like our lovely woman earlier. I've had my fun, and now I'm ready for a man who truly deserves me, and I'm done with the games. And it's like, you're done with the games because the games were done with you.